Businesses, governments and political leaders in Australia, New Zealand and the Asia-Pacific benefit from sharing networks and ideas in regards to their economies. The Trans-Tasman Business Circle, a network that acts as a strategic growth partner by providing a collaborative place for the Asia-Pacific to connect. And of course also doing a quarterly survey as well, giving us a pulse check too on economic conditions and expectations of businesses in both Australia and New Zealand. To get some more on this, we're joined now by the CEO of the Trans-Tasman Business Circle, John Weiss, from our Sydney CBD studio. Great to see you, John. As always, it's always good to get an update from you on this. Just firstly, with this latest read for the June quarter, what have you been hearing from both Australia and New Zealand businesses about economic conditions?
Sure. Well, we see it's quite similar to the beginning of the year, in which we have strong confidence in New Zealand, strong growth, and very good consumer and business confidence, and strong stability. In Australia, after the peak following the election last year, a kind of meandering, a plateauing out of business confidence and business expectation. And of course, we come now to the 1st of July with the new political framework. It's further uncertainty.
So just in terms of, in particular, the outlook for demand for products and services, has it been quite stark in what you've been seeing between Australian and New Zealand businesses in terms of that?
Absolutely. New Zealand has got great demand, housing, consumer demand, very good offshore demand for commodity prices at pretty high prices. Australia, as we know, demand for some of our core exports falling away, certainly prices falling away. Consumer demand in Australia steady, or retail spending also meandering a little bit, but housing demand, construction at least in Australia, a little bit higher. So in one message, New Zealand consistent, Australia patchy.
We've been hearing, of course, about investment intentions here in Australia really being held back by some of those things that you've mentioned. Overall capital expenditure, what was the projections that you were getting from Australian businesses that you were talking to?
We've seen a plateauing out of capital expenditure in Australia in the last few months, and people are not yet too sure how much to invest. We see a little bit of a rise in business lending from the banks, which is very encouraging, but some of the bigger issues, most of our organisations are still looking to make the most with what they have and seeing what the demand will be for their products going forward. In New Zealand, they're much more confident and capex is much higher.
Overall, what's your sort of thinking for what we'll see then going forward over the next quarter? Because certainly both Australia and New Zealand dealing with, strong currencies and housing markets that are very strong as well, but in very different places.
Absolutely. Well, if we look politically, which is such a strong feature of both countries, New Zealand will have a general election on the 20th of September. The current government, which has done a magnificent job over the last 5 or 6 years in restoring the economy to very good health, and in fact a surplus this year, and projected surpluses, this will be the major factor in New Zealand leading up to the election. This and then of course will impact on business decision making. In Australia, the wider picture, post-July, Senate, the government trying to get through its legislation, this of course impacts on business confidence and above all business uncertainty. And there's still a little bit more haggling between the two houses of Parliament in Australia.
Really appreciate you bringing us up to date on that state of play. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, Brody. Thank you.
John Weiss there from the Trans-Tasman Business Circle, CEO.